Hey guys, good evening. It's Monday, July 8th, and I haven't left a video in a few days. And rough week last week. Not feeling real well with some things, and just dealing with some other things, so I didn't get out to you guys. I apologize about that. But had a lot I wanted to talk to you about today. In fact, I'll probably carry some of this over into tomorrow. Uh, but definitely some, and I try. I'm usually not very political, but today some of it may lean towards politics and surprisingly in support of our president at the moment. But first thing is tomorrow, if those of you have followed me closely, and it's some of you, tomorrow's a pretty monumental day. It may be a little bit of a emotional day for me, and if you don't know why, I'll tell you tomorrow. Uh, Definitely looking back and some things. So, but tomorrow's a pretty memorable day for me anyway, and I'll share it with you tomorrow if you're not aware of why. Secondly, have to give out kudos and congratulations to the USA women's soccer team for winning the World Cup, their second in a row. I think they won something like 23-2 overall, or 23-3, something ridiculous like that. So again, they dominated it, and congratulations to them for doing so. But the one thing I want to talk about tonight, there's really two folds, and you can spin it into politics if you want. But my biggest pet peeve, I've always said, is hypocrisy. I just despise hypocrites. If you're something, then say you're something. Um, if you're gay, if you're racist, if you're whatever you might be, just embrace who you are, right? If you're insecure, if you're whatever, don't pretend you're not, right? And I just hate that. And that's kind of what pointing the thumb is just owning who you are. But I despise hypocrisy, people that say one thing and then do another. And there's a couple of things I want to talk about with that. There's that happened recently. First of all, this past July 4th was the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, right? And there's a sports writer named Peter King, and this blowhard is all over the news right now, talking about how he's against it and what a waste of food and things like that this contest is. And again, when you talk about the enormity of need for food in this world, uh, and I hate when people go off uneducated, and that's going to tie into more of what I'm saying in a minute. But the facts are this: when you know about the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, they went through 1,700 hot dogs at the contest, and they gave out 60,000 hot dogs to local food banks and things like that in the area, in the metropolitan New York area. So I would say the food banks made out pretty well in that. But again, it's I guess chic to be able to complain about something and to pick on something. So this idiot starts yelling and going off about what a waste of food and money it is for this hot dog eating contest. Look, if it's not your cup of tea, that's fine. But to sit there and carry on like that without knowing the facts is just, again, shows what a buffoon he is in this moment, right? And that ties into something else. Last week, President Trump had this giant 4th of July shindig, and of course, whether it was self-serving for him, whether it was used as a political event, or whether it was used to celebrate the country, whatever. Again, our country wastes so much money on so many things, but we want to point the finger at this particular celebration. But what makes me laugh, and I laugh for two reasons. What makes me laugh in general laughter was this, Crusaders Against Trump created these two giant hot air balloons of baby Trump, one on a toilet tweeting, and another one just of him. And they were generally funny. And I don't think we laugh enough at things like this. Everyone's got to be so damn serious about everything. So that in its right was funny. But what makes me laugh about it was those very people that created these enormous hot air balloons, and I don't know what the cost is, are the very same people complaining about what a waste of money this celebration was and how extravagant it was. Again, you talk about people wasting money, and then you go do something along those lines. Now, I'm glad they did. I got a laugh out of it. My life's not going to be changed whether Trump spent, $30 million on the celebration or $10 million on the celebration. No other president's ever come under that kind of scrutiny in terms of everything that they've done in terms of that. But again, hypocrisy, right? They create these giant balloons and sit them out there and have this protest to protest the fact that the president's spending too much money. I just kind of think it's goofy as far as that goes. But I do have something else that I'm sure I'm going to offend a few people with it, but so be it. I don't follow the news. I don't follow politics enough to say, but there's two things that tie into something of hot news topics right now. The first of which is the president's desire to have a census question created about citizenship. And for some reason, which I can't fathom, there's a what's the word I'm looking for? People against this. Now, censuses are sort of laughable in the sense that, someone knocks on your door, hands you a piece of paper, and you tell them what you want to tell them. It's like swearing on a Bible before a criminal case. Like somehow that's going to cause you to, when you take someone's life, you're going to now tell the truth because you put your hand on the Bible. Anyway, my point being, why wouldn't we want to put that question on the census, right? And here's what I'm trying to get at when I say that. I think so many of us have opinions, myself included, when I say this, that I just don't know the facts or the details. And here's where I might offend somebody, because I'm going to use two analogies. The first one makes the most sense, but some idiot out there will turn around and tell me I'm calling immigrants nice. But my point is this. I come home one day and I'm told, hey, we have a mouse problem in the house. Okay, what's the problem? Well, we have a mouse. Okay, I'm going to treat that one way. I come home and say we have a mouse problem. I say, what's the problem? We have 100 mice in the house. Well, I'm going to treat that entirely different. Now, again, let me give you another analogy for those of you that want to tell me I'm comparing immigrants to mice, right? You live in a small town, right? You live in a big city. People have a parade. So someone says they're going to have a parade. We're going to have a parade, so we get security. Well, is that parade through small town Manchester, PA, where, 3 local cops will get the job done? Or is that parade on Fifth Avenue in Manhattan, where you might need, 3,000 New York City police officers there? And that's kind of my point when it comes to where I'm in the dark about the whole immigration topic. Right? I think that we would all be better served if we actually had some data. Now, of course, data would be disputed, and somebody would say it's fake news, that if it didn't support their argument and things like that. But I would kind of like to know, how many illegal immigrants do we have in the country? I'm not saying that we would know to the number, but is the number 10,000 or is the number, 1,010,000? Because my opinion of how to deal with it might be swayed based upon that. If look, I have friends that are in the country illegally, as far as I know. I don't know that for a fact, but I surmise that. But again, we create opinions without any data. We state things as fact when we don't have any facts to back it up. And that's something that I think, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe the rest of the country knows, and it's just me that doesn't know, but, we talk about immigration and building walls and sending people back to other countries and all this other stuff. But wouldn't it be nice if we had a general agreement and number that said, here's what the population, the estimated population of illegal immigrants in our country is? As I said, when somebody says 10,000, I might react one way. If somebody says 3 million, I might react a completely different way. Being I don't know that question, I wonder how our politicians are arguing or developing plans to solve this crisis, if it's even a crisis, right? And again, some will say it's not, others will say clearly it is. But if we don't have basic facts, how can we even develop an opinion? And that ties into my next thing, which really set me off a little bit today. So I'm driving home from work this morning, and I hear the news, and I hear some of our politicians talking about, well, it was twofold, it was on both sides. I hear some of our politicians talking about the inhumane conditions at these detention centers, okay? And then I hear our president talking about, oh, it's all fake news, the detention centers are great. Wouldn't it be simply solved by taking some photos, by sending a group in there? Maybe there are pictures of these detention centers and the condition they're in. I don't know. But to have somebody squawking that it's inhumane and have somebody else saying they're fine, just doesn't seem to suit me well. There's a movie called 13 Days. Brilliant movie. It's about JFK's dealings with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Okay, and in that movie, it's a true story. There's a point where at the UN, the U.S. is creating an embargo or a blockade against these Russian ships because they're sending missiles over to Cuba, and the Russian consulate at the UN denies it. Well, the U.S. happened to have, photo surveillance of these missiles being there. So when the Russians said, no, we don't have them, we produced the photos. They look like jackasses. Problem resolved. Wouldn't that same situation just suit just fine when it comes to these migration detention centers? And lastly, on that same note, there's where I was appalled. I'm hearing a couple of senators, or government senators, I guess, saying, what kind of Americans are we that we have these people in such deplorable conditions? A, I don't know that they're deplorable. And B, I'm thinking about how their ancestors and my ancestors and your ancestors came to this country. If you came from Europe, you came with nothing on your back in some crowded ship with not a lot of real luxury there for you. If you came over and you're African American and your ancestors came here on a slave ship, they certainly didn't come over here in real good conditions, right? So I don't understand, if it was good enough for our ancestors to suffer, people that tried to exile here from Cuba would get in a life raft and go and drift off into shark-infested waters to get here. But yet, we should be putting folks up at the Four Seasons Hotel. Obviously, they're not saying that, and I'm being a little bit facetious. But I mean, if you want to come into our country and you want to try to get into it illegally, and you get caught, I'm not so. Why do we have to go out of our way to put up such amazing conditions? They knew the consequences when they left and made their choice. They're here. I'm not saying we should treat them like dirt and let them swim in their own feces, but I mean, good God, didn't everybody's ancestors suffer quite a bit on their way over here? So that one really had me fired up. And one of them, one senator said something about, what kind of America are we if this is what we do? It's like concentration camps down there. And again, a simple picture would tell us if it was or if it wasn't, right? So that's my spiel today about politics. And again, information is knowledge, and knowledge would help us a great deal. I don't know how many illegal immigrants are in this country. I don't know what the conditions are down at the migrant detention centers. So to hear people squawking back and forth, how could I possibly make an opinion without knowing something myself? And lastly, I want to call out somebody, an athlete that I really admire now and really like a lot. There's a tennis player, I'm gonna maybe not say his last name correctly, named Nick Kyrgios. And he's a bit flaky. He's admittedly a bit flaky. And he's been one of these guys that's an enigma on the tennis tour. He's got all the talent in the world, but he just kind of gets inside his own head and screws up and doesn't become the greatest player in the world, doesn't even make the top 10. Well, this past week he was playing a tennis match against one of the greats of all time, Rafael Nadal, and he came to the net, Nadal did, and this guy smashed the ball right at Nadal and hit him. And they asked him about it, and again, instead of pretending the whole, like everybody, oh no, I wasn't trying to hit him, he goes, yeah, I was trying to hit him. So, I mean, just to have that brutal honesty, for one, earns my respect. Again, pointing the thumb. Why hide behind this stuff? But then the second thing I thought was so apropos was, for years, I'm a big sports fan, I love to watch tennis, the commentators, the pundits, are all wondering, what is it about this guy that he doesn't have it to be the greatest, he's got all the talent, doesn't have the work ethic, he's this, he's that. And I asked him about it. And you know what he said? He said, guys, it's okay. I don't want to put in the work that it takes to be the greatest. I'm pretty comfortable being pretty good, making a living, and being on tour. And I just thought that was so brilliant in the fact that he just owned who he was. And he said, look, I'm comfortable in my role. You guys can talk about it all you want. You guys can view me as a failure. I don't. I don't want to put forth that effort. I'm pretty content. That's it for today, guys. Have a good day. I'll see you tomorrow. Keep pointing the thumb.